avoid making this into more than it is? Well,
Me personally?
yeah, as a coach, setting a tone, et cetera.
I just think we have to get our players ready to play. Have to get them as prepared as we possibly can. You know, we know the challenge ahead, but you know, if you're asking if I worry about controlling emotion, I really don't. It just has to be channeled the right way, and that's sort of how I've always approached games like tomorrow's game.
Chris, how familiar were you with Kentucky, Louisville before you got here? Man, I know you were only up the road a little bit, but you had your own team to coach. How much did you pay attention to?
I mean, you pay attention to it. You know, I've been in college basketball for a long time as either a player or a coach. And, you know, it's one of the, if not the premier non-conference game in all of college basketball. So, you know, as a college basketball fan, not just a coach, even though I didn't have any, you know, horse in the race, so to speak, you know, I still gravitate to watching, you know, great basketball, as long as, you know, it's not interfering with the job that I had at hand.
You've been involved in, obviously, the big rivalry yourself. Any similarities you can draw, any comparisons to what you went through at Xavier with Cincinnati and this?
There's that Cincinnati.
How should I refer to him in the future?
That's all right. I would say that, you know, generally the fan bases don't like each other. That really has nothing to do with the coaching staffs or the programs or the players. But, you know, for those of you that have ever been to Cincinnati or lived in Cincinnati, like, you had a little feeling when you saw somebody walking around with a Bearcat logo on, you know, if you were a Xavier person, and vice versa. And, you know, when you're driving on Waterson or you're driving on Gene Snyder and you see that big blue plate next to you, you just sort of keep staring straight ahead. Or you hit him from behind. So we all have those feelings as fans, but, you know, when it comes to the players and the coaches, at least from our end, there's a ton of respect, and we know how talented and well coached the team that we're going to play tomorrow is.
What did you see from Christian as he went through that concussion protocol, and how is he now? How do you expect him to be tomorrow?
Did great. You know, I thought at the time when it happened, he went down pretty good, and like the good trainer that he is, Fred said, hey, I don't see him playing, and you know, there was no argument on our end. You know, we want the best for our student athletes. But it was good that he was feeling much better on the day that we played Robert Morris. So that gave me a great indication that by the time that the UK game came around, he'd be fine. But he still has to go through the protocol, and that is, can he lift weights? Can he go 5-on-0, do some cardio, and not have any symptoms, you know, reoccurring or any setbacks? And he didn't. And then you release him to a contact practice, and as long as he remains symptom-free and there aren't any setbacks, then he'd be good to go. So he's gone through 2 or 3 contact practices at this point. So unless the same type of injury in a freak instance were to happen, I see no reason why he would be out there tomorrow.
What kind of a challenge is this for your bigs, and what are the keys to that challenge?
It's the biggest challenge we faced all year. You know, them in Tennessee would probably be on fairly even ground because of the way they play. You know, some teams have pretty good bigs, but they don't utilize them in a way that we'll see tomorrow, in a way that we saw against Tennessee, and we didn't pass that challenge against Tennessee. You know, just physical duck-ins. Their bigs tend to set quick pin downs to free up their guards as post feeders, and they duck in and they carve out space. They draw fouls at a very, very high rate. So we're going to have to do as good of a job as we've done all year keeping the ball out of the paint. And they're going to hit some twos, but they can't be angled twos with no defender between the ball and the basket. That's a big challenge. Not a lot of teams pass that challenge. Hopefully we'll be one of them.
So with your wife, Christy, growing up here, how much pressure has she put on you to, you know, win this game? And if you don't, maybe, you know, can you come home tomorrow night?
Come on, man. No, she doesn't put any pressure on me. She puts pressure on me to take out the garbage and do the things that we all have to do as husbands, but nothing when it comes to the game.
Given their ability to draw fouls, how does that influence your substitution pattern and your maybe concern about your bigs?
Well, we have to manage it. You know, I guess you can have sort of an emergency plan, if you will, in your back pocket, which I'm not going to share, but you know, we just have to be cognizant of who has fouls, what our matchups are, who's coming in the game for them. But that happens each and every game. Now, again, like you said, the way they play, they draw a lot of fouls. And so we're going to have to know who has fouls on our team and do the best job we can of keeping the ball out of the lane, whether that's a drive, whether that's a post up, whether that's an offensive rebound. Because when those things happen around the basket, that's when fouls are drawn. And it's got to be a game for us that we do a great job of defending, not being passive, not sticking our chest in there. I mean, you draw fouls on a defender when he's hesitant, when he sort of reaches, versus, you know, putting your chest in there, putting your 2 feet in the right position, and doing what you need to do and staying disciplined.
Has that been a special area of emphasis in practice the last few days?
Yeah.
Statistics would suggest that they're not great at defending the three. Does that show on film?
I don't know. I think, you know, teams obviously get really hyped up to play Kentucky. Everybody on their schedule, you know, it's a game kids are excited to play in, every single one. And some of those teams that you know, hit a decent percentage, it's all they can get are good looks around the three-point line. And when I say good looks, I should say that's all they can do is get looks, because everything around the lane gets swatted. You've got to be able to get in the lane. You've got to be tough with the ball. You've got to be able to utilize a shot fake, see out, and you have to be able to finish and use the rim as a protector at times. And I think some of the teams they played in the non-conference, they physically can't do that. You know, some of them can do it for 10, 20 minutes. And so what you find is a team that's really dependent heavily on threes. And so, you know, some of the games, I mean, like you look at Seton Hall, they played a great game, but some of the threes that Miles Powell hit, I don't know how you can contest them anymore. I mean, the game winner, which didn't become the winner because of the half-court shot made, he double clutched it from three. And you usually don't see that on a highlight tape. So, you know, we just have to generate the best shot, whether it's behind the line or in front of the line, if we can.
What's your overall assessment of this team? 12 games in, maybe compared to where you thought you'd be. I mean,
you know, if you ask me if I go down the schedule, like maybe a fan does, and say, hey, we could win this one, lose that one, I don't do that. You know, I have high expectations for our team each and every game. I feel like after having played 12 games, you know, we could have won really all of them. But, you know, the Marquette and Indiana games stick in your craw a little bit, and hopefully are games that we learn lessons from. I think we have a ways to go. I think a few players can play a little bit better. But I think the overall spirit of our team, in terms of playing together, playing hard, I don't think you could be an outsider looking in and said the Louisville guys don't give it their all. And as long as we do that and continue to get better throughout the course of the season against a very, very challenging schedule, then that's all you can ask as a coach. I don't know if I answered your question, but I don't really care if I answer yours.
Follow up a little bit on what Tim asked at the beginning. And you said the players get excited, obviously. What about you? Do these kind of games excite you more?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't make me prepare harder, if that's what you mean. But I think that, yeah, I mean, this is why you come to Louisville, you know, to play in games like this. You know, as I said before, it's the best non-conference game in the entire country. If you're not playing and you're a college basketball player or a coach, like, you're tuning into the game. And so who wouldn't want to be a part of something like that? That's why it's hard to get a ticket. That's why there's, you know, more people here than there were for Robert Morris. You know, I didn't see Jay, you know, when we played Robert Morris a week ago. So yeah, you want to be a part of it, but I don't want it to seem as if, hey, now Coach watches more film. Hey, now we practice longer. That would be a disservice to the other teams that we play. And we're always concerned more about ourselves and the opponent, regardless of how good the opponent may be.
Anything else?
Let me ask one more thing. You talked about the bigs. What concerns you about their perimeter people?
Listen, you know, they're an inside-out team, but every guy out there is a five-star. Every guy out there was as highly recruited as any kid in the country. And so, you know, there's great concern. You know, Hagan's proved it against North Carolina. He was the best player on the floor at times and didn't have anything to do with his scoring. He dominated the game defensively. You know, you look at Tyler Harrow, and he's a guy that you know, takes the most shots on their team. They run a lot of actions for him. He can heat up in a second. And then Keldon Johnson's a top 10 pick. So if you ask me, you know, do I have any concerns outside of their post players? Absolutely not.
Did you watch them against Duke, and were you inclined to just write that off, or did you interpret anything in that game?
And Duke's pretty good too.
Yeah.
You know, they got hit in the mouth. And I thought Duke made some shots early on, some really, really tough shots. And I think, you know, like young teams do, no matter how talented they are, Kentucky was very impatient early on. And all of a sudden the deficit, you know, went from 5-6 to 12 and 14. And yeah, my teams that I've had over the years don't handle that the right way. They try to shoot their way out of trouble instead of execute your way out of trouble. You're trying to take guys that just played high school basketball, you know, 4 or 5 months ago and say, hey, we've got to execute our way out of trouble. You know, they learned a lesson and they become better because of it. But Duke's pretty good too.
Chris, how much?
Thank God they're not on our schedule.
How much have you brought up, if at all, last year's game, and how do you use that as a motivational tool?
I haven't brought it up a whole lot. You know, I wasn't in the locker room. I wasn't on the sidelines. I wasn't, you know, a part of the chemistry a year ago. But so I haven't used it a whole lot. You know, as a competitor, if you haven't internalized that and thought about that 90 to 61 ass whooping, then I don't want you on my team.
Other questions? Yeah, here we go.
What did you guys see in Kristen when you brought him here, and what has he meant to this program, this team this season?
I saw a very experienced, run the team point guard who had some defensive deficiencies and who plays the game for his teammates and really wanted to be a Cardinal. You know, his brother was a student manager here. He grew up in this state. Like a lot of guys that don't get recruited to Kentucky's level or Louisville's level, he had a chip on his shoulder, felt like he could play at this level. And I haven't seen anything different since he's been here, other than he's gotten tons better defensively. And I just don't think he wanted to be a good defender until he got here. But, you know, like a lot of people, when you get thrown into a more competitive environment, you figure out if you want to survive, you better do some things maybe you hadn't done in the past. He is as rock solid of a person as I've coached. It sort of sucks that I can only coach him for 1 year, but just sort of how it goes.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.